Now, how would you feel if I told you that one of the most watched sporting events on Earth was almost cancelled before it even started because nobody wanted to get on a boat for 3 weeks to play football? I mean, that's basically what happened. Because in 1930, when FIFA decided to hold the very first World Cup in Uruguay, most of the European nations just said no. Too far. Too long. Too inconvenient. And honestly, I kind of get it. Uruguay is not exactly around the corner. The whole thing was the brainchild of Jules Rimet, a French lawyer who became FIFA president in 1921 and genuinely believed football could do what diplomats couldn't: bind countries together, which is a very romantic idea for a man who is about to watch grown adults kick each other in the shins for 90 minutes. So here's the situation. It's 1928. FIFA officially announces the tournament is happening. Uruguay gets picked as the host, partly because of their football culture and partly because they were celebrating 100 years of independence and wanted to show off. Which, fair enough. I'd want to show off too. But then only 4 European teams actually show up. 4. Belgium, France, Romania, and Yugoslavia all had to sail across the Atlantic for weeks just to get there. And honestly, that kind of dedication is incredible when you think about it. Because the prize was basically a trophy and some glory. 13 teams total made it. 7 from South America, 4 from Europe, 2 from North America. And the format was 3 groups of 3 teams, 1 group of 4, and then straight semi-finals. Simple. Clean. Possibly the only time in FIFA history that the format was actually simple. The first World Cup match ever played was on July 13, 1930. France beat Mexico 4-1. Simultaneously, the United States beat Belgium 3-0. And France's Lucien Laurent scored the very first goal in World Cup history. I mean, imagine that. You score a goal and 100 years later, people are still writing about it. Laurent himself probably had no idea what he'd just done. The whole tournament produced 70 goals across 18 matches, which works out to almost 3.9 goals per game on average. That is actually a wild number. Modern tournaments don't come close to that. And then Uruguay beat Argentina 4-2 in the final, in front of 93,000 people in Montevideo, and became the first ever World Cup champions. A country of maybe 2 million people. Genuinely remarkable. Now here's where things get complicated. Because the World Cup just stopped for 12 years. Italy hosted in 1934, France in 1938, and then World War II happened. And that was that. No tournament in 1942, no tournament in 1946. Just nothing. Which is obviously for very understandable reasons, but it does mean we went over a decade without the thing. And when it came back in 1950 in Brazil, something absolutely extraordinary happened. Something so traumatic to the Brazilian people that it still has a name. The Maracanazo. Uruguay, again, walked into the Maracanã Stadium in front of what might have been 200,000 people, which is still a world record attendance for any football match, and beat Brazil in the final group match to win the tournament. Brazil needed only a draw, and they lost. I lost. Rian, how does that happen? The Brazilian goalkeeper Barbosa apparently never fully recovered from the blame he received for the rest of his life, which is genuinely awful. Italy won in 1934 and 1938. Uruguay won in 1930 and 1950. West Germany won in 1954. And then Brazil, in 1958, changed everything. Because in 1958, a 17-year-old named Pelé showed up and just started doing things that nobody had ever seen before. He scored 6 goals in 4 games, including a hat-trick in the semi-final and 2 in the final. He was 17. 17. I was 17, and I couldn't even parallel park. Brazil beat Sweden 5-2 in the final and began building what would become the most decorated national team in the history of the sport. They won again in 1962. And then, in 1970 in Mexico, they produced what most people consider the greatest World Cup performance ever. Pelé, Jairzinho, Tostão, Rivellino. That team just dismantled everyone they played. They beat Italy 4-1 in the final. And winning that third title in 1970 meant something very specific. Under the original rules, the first nation to win 3 World Cups got to keep the Jules Rimet trophy permanently. So Brazil took it home. They put it in a glass case at the Brazilian Football Confederation headquarters in Rio. And then, on December 19, 1983, someone broke in and stole it. And it has never been found. It's almost certainly been melted down by now, which is just one of the most depressing sentences I think I've ever had to say. The most famous trophy in world football, gone. Just gone. So now the current trophy, designed by an Italian artist named Silvio Gazzaniga, is the one everyone lifts today. And technically, you don't even get to keep it. You get a gold-plated replica. The real one stays with FIFA, which honestly feels a little stingy. England hosted in 1966 and won it, which is the one time England won it, which they will remind you about every single tournament forever. But 1966 was actually a fascinating tournament for a few other reasons. First, the actual trophy was stolen before the tournament started and found a week later by a dog named Pickles. A dog named Pickles found the World Cup. I don't know why that isn't the most famous story in English football history. Also, North Korea showed up and eliminated Italy in the group stage, which was one of the biggest upsets the tournament had ever seen at that point. North Korea then led Portugal 3-0 in the quarter-finals, before Eusebio scored 4 goals and Portugal won 5-3. Incredible match, genuinely one of the most dramatic games in the tournament's history. The format kept changing over the years because apparently FIFA cannot leave well enough alone. 13 teams in 1930, 16 by 1958, 24 in 1982 when Spain hosted, 32 in 1998 when France hosted, and France won it on home soil by beating Brazil 3-0 in the final, which was a scoreline that genuinely shocked most people watching. And now for 2026 it's going up to 48 teams, which is a lot. That's a lot of teams. 72 group stage matches. 104 matches total. I'm not saying it's too many, but it is a lot. The qualifying process already involves over 200 nations, which means almost every country on Earth is trying to get in. And honestly, I find that kind of amazing. 8 nations have actually won the thing. Brazil with 5, Germany and Italy with 4 each, Argentina with 3, France and Uruguay with 2 each, England and Spain with 1 each. And every single winner has come from either Europe or South America. Every one. No nation from Africa, Asia, North America, or Oceania has ever won a World Cup, which is a fact that becomes more and more surprising as those regions keep producing better and better players. Japan, South Korea, Senegal, Morocco. These teams have made deep runs in recent tournaments. Morocco reached the semi-final in 2022, which was genuinely historic, but the trophy has never left those two continents. Yet, speaking of 2022, the World Cup in Qatar, that final, come on, Argentina versus France. Argentina goes 2-0 up through Messi and Di Maria, looking comfortable, and then Mbappe scores twice in 2 minutes to make it 2-2 in the final 10 minutes of regulation. Messi scores in extra time to make it 3-2. Mbappe scores again from the penalty spot to make it 3-3. It goes to penalties. Argentina win 4-2. Mbappe finishes the match with a hat-trick, and still ends up on the losing side. That is actually unhinged. That is one of the most unhinged football matches I've ever seen. And it gave Lionel Messi, after 4 previous World Cup campaigns and a final loss in 2014, his first title, at 35 years old, which felt like the universe finally getting something right. The records that have accumulated over nearly a century of this tournament are kind of insane when you look at them properly. Just Fontaine scored 13 goals in the 1958 tournament alone, in a single tournament. That record has stood for 67 years, and nobody has come close. The highest scoring match in World Cup history was Austria versus Switzerland in 1954, which ended 7-5, 12 goals. In a World Cup match, Mbappe holds the record for goals scored in World Cup finals with 4 across 2018 and 2022. Pelé is the only person to win 3 World Cups as a player, and Brazil remains the only nation to have appeared in every single tournament since 1930. Every one. 22 consecutive World Cups, through wars and boycotts and qualification disasters that have knocked out everyone else at some point. Brazil has always been there. The 2026 World Cup is being hosted across the United States, Canada, and Mexico, which is 3 countries sharing one tournament, which is genuinely unprecedented at this scale. 16 host cities, games from Vancouver to New York to Guadalajara, and 48 teams fighting for the thing. 12 groups of 4, top 2 from each group plus the 8 best third-place finishers moving through to a round of 32. It's a new format. Nobody really knows how it's going to feel. But honestly, that's kind of what the World Cup has always been. Someone invents a new format, everyone argues about it, and then someone scores a goal that nobody forgets for the next 100 years.